Now, stay tuned for Mrs. Green's World, a fun and informative green talk radio show that features guests from all over the country who talk about how living green can improve your lifestyle and be fun. Visit Mrs. Green's website, www.mrsgreensworld.com, for more information about her guests.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Saturday. This is Mrs. Green's World, News Talk 790 KNST. We are live this wonderful Saturday. We have an interesting, informative, and really exciting, fun show today. Every one of you listeners, stay here. You're not going to believe what's coming up next about a Facebook phenomenon.
790KNST.com.
So we have on the line, calling in from Illinois, but actually he is from Washington, D.C., Ian Moise, and this is one of the most intriguing guests that Mrs. Green has ever interviewed, and I'm going right out there on record saying that, Ian, no pressure. Thanks for calling in.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Green. It's nice to be with you.
Okay, here's why, to me, it's such a phenomenon, because you literally, as far as I can tell from the research, you have a Facebook page called Reuse Connection, and it's R-E and then the capital U-S-E Connection, and being a Facebook fanatic for Mrs. Green, you have almost 60,000 followers. That blows me away. Tell us about what it is, how you thought it up, why you're doing it, and how did you get to 60,000 followers already? It's a fun it's a fun page.
Well, thank you very much. Let's see, I think you packed a few questions
I
in
did,
there.
so we can go one at a time. So give us a little bit about your background. How about that?
Sure. Well, actually, you said I'm from Washington, D.C., which is where I live, but I actually grew up in California.
And there's the reason. It's in your blood.
Right?
It's in your blood.
It's in my blood. No, it is in my blood, actually, because my mother was quite the greenie from long ago. I mean, there were many like her, but it just wasn't mainstream. I mean, she helped start the first recycling center in Santa Monica, California, in the early 70s. So it certainly was in my blood. Although my father was a little bit more middle of the road, so I also had a kind of a balanced upbringing. I wasn't a tree hugger or anything like that. But what happened is I got into college high school and college, and it just struck me especially I remember Christmas being a real kind of blow to me. Like, why was I getting all these gifts? And where were they going to end up? And one year in particular, I just remember getting a watch, and someone mentioned to me that, why did you want another watch? And I was like, you're right. Why do I want that? So, that kind of stimulated my thinking. I just got interested in the waste stream and where it all goes. Tie that into kind of some international interest. After college, I traveled quite a bit around Europe, and then I was actually in the Peace Corps in Africa, and I spent the last 15 years working in the international development, and that exposed me to a lot of the differences between kind of rich and poor, and seeing a lot of the utilitarianism that you get in poor countries. And so the site actually ultimately is a connection between all these different countries where I've been in. And, not to say that there are not poor people in the States or rich people in Africa or anywhere else, or that that everyone, who's poor is like green-minded, eco-conscious, super sustainable. They certainly aren't. And there's a lot of very creative and brilliant people in the States and other wealthy countries. But just connecting these different realities and helping the idea is to kind of help where I come from see some of the value of, where I've been.
Well, tell people that are not on Facebook what the site is about. I mean, explain what it is. It's a fun site. It's hard to do without a visual. If people are listening on their computers, they can go to Facebook and see Reuse Connection. But it's ingenious, some of the things that I see on there. And I actually post comments kind of frequently. It's a fun site. So tell people, explain it the best you can, the kind of things that are up there. To have 60,000 followers almost is no small task.
Sure. Well, I mean, the site is basically, and we have a website coming. Actually, we've been working on the website for 2 years. It started off with me and my father. My father's a software developer, so he's actually developing the site. It's been slow because we both have day jobs, but and the ideas were all mine. And now we have a bunch of volunteers that are helping as well. But the real basic concept of the site is, someone in Poland, uses flip-flops to make a waste bin, and someone doesn't have that idea in Zimbabwe, and they go on the site and they see it and they think, I can make a business out of this. So it's really knowledge sharing about how to reuse materials. And what happened? I had this idea 2 years ago, and my father started developing the website that I designed. But I was confronted with the fact that I needed a community, or I needed to kind of bring together the different people. I knew there were tons of people interested in reuse and recycle and reduce, the 3 R's, but needed to bring them together. So that's where I started learning about social networking, and certainly found my home on Facebook, which has been very good to us. It just is. It's a great place to build this type of community. We post 3 posts a day, and tons of people are doing this stuff. I mean, we're not the reuse experts. I guess a lot of people think of us as the reuse experts, but we're not. It's actually all the people out there that are the reuse experts, and it's all the experiences around the world. People in Russia see things differently than people in Japan, than people in Kansas, than people in Mexico, than people anywhere. So we all kind of have our different views of how materials are and how we can reuse them. And what we do is we just go out and find different reuses. And now the community is large enough that actually a lot of our fans actually post things that they do or that they see when they see a blog article. They say, "Hey, I thought about you guys today," so they post it, and we repost most or a lot of the things that our users post.
So it was it was a viral spread, and it was your 15 years of traveling around the world that helped the connections. Was there a tipping point at which you looked at your Facebook page and you said, "Oh my gosh, it's really happening"? Because you haven't been up that long. I mean, in the big scheme of things.
I started it in January of last year, so we certainly have grown fast. And a lot of people, as you can imagine, a lot of people ask that same question, like, how did you get so many followers? There wasn't really a tipping point. I mean, I think I've answered this question a number of different times, and I think there's maybe 2 or 3 things that I can point to. One is that there's a lot of people out there. What I saw in the space of reuse and recycle and reduce is fragmentation, and I saw tons of people writing articles, and I wanted to find one place, or I wanted to build one space where they could all kind of come together. So that's the idea. And I think reuse is an interesting case in the sector because it's both broad and focused. So it talks about everything material, but at the same time, it's focused because it's not like an environmental blog like Tree Hugger or something like that, which talks about everything under the sun. I think with your last guest, you mentioned that green hits everything. Well, we focus on reuse, and we focus on materials. So we have that focus. It really brings people together for that, but then, of course, it's very broad because, of course, everything in the material world. You can think about human beings and the relationship to the material world, and everything is inside.
Does anybody ever post, I haven't seen it that much, do people put help with this? I have all these things. Can you help me with what I can make out of it? And is there a community that responds to that with ideas? I mean, I want to talk about some of the specific things that you have on there so that our listeners can get a feel for it, because I have to tell you, it cracks me up, and it entertains me, and it excites me, and it's the creative uses that people put to what some might ostensibly call garbage or trash, and then it becomes something absolutely beautiful and functional. I mean, I think that's it. But is there a call for the community or the tribe, so to speak, to answer? You for example, you have a fan on there that's made out of CDs. I'm like, really? Who thought that up?
Right. Yeah. As I said, people think of things differently. They see things through different lenses. So it's just combining all those different viewpoints.
Okay.
We do actually, in the first kind of last year, we posted a lot of people. People ask questions all the time on our user page. They say, "What can I do with CDs?" That's a common one. Or "What can I do with plastic bags?" Or "How can I reuse this or that?" And that's a big part of our site. Actually, the 2 questions on our website when we launch will be, "What can I do with such and such?" And then you put in like shoes, and it'll search our database, and it'll come up with all the reuses people have for shoes. Or you'll be able to ask, "What can I reuse to make a cabinet?" And people will say, and then it'll come up with a search of our database for what people have reused to make cabinets, whether it's shelving or, a bowling alley floor or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So that a lot of people ask those questions. We did post a lot of them last year. What can I do with this? How can I reuse that? And the community would come up with tons of things, tons of examples. And it's still in our, it's not as exciting or visual as these kind of cool creative
Oh
reuses
my
that
gosh.
you see. For example,
No
the fan
kidding.
that you mentioned.
No kidding. And the M&M dress. We have to talk about those things. We have to take a quick break. When we come back, you're going to be hearing more from Ian Moise, a Facebook social media phenomenon site called the Reuse Connection. And I've got lots more questions, and I'm sure he's got lots more answers. Mrs. Green's World, News Talk 790 KNST. Please stay here with me.
News Talk 790 KNST.